Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the BNP Associate Community Affairs podcast, where we have legal and social discussions about issues affecting the community. My name is Tracy. I'm a legal associate at BNP Associates, and I'll be your host for this episode. This episode promised to be exciting because we'll be discussing air passenger rights in Ghana. And this episode is especially relevant given the season we are in right now, which is the festive season. People will be traveling in and out of Ghana to spend time with their friends, family, and loved ones. And it is only right that we provide a little bit of knowledge about their potential rights, especially when they travel via airlines. Just to give a little bit of context as to how Ghana's aviation industry has grown within the last couple of years. In 2024, it was reported by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority that there were an average of 74 international flights to Ghana. There was also about 6,000 international travelers daily to Ghana's airports and 2,000 domestic passengers traveling every day in Ghana. So, to join me in discussing this topic is my colleague and senior legal associate, Nana Ahin Asan. Nana has extensive knowledge about the aviation industry and aviation law. Nana, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it. So we know that generally, before someone can have rights, those rights should be based on a law. So if I'm a passenger of an airline, what laws govern the rights I'm entitled to?
So the main law that governs air passenger rights is the Montreal Convention, signed in 1999. And this convention is an international treaty that governs airline liability to passengers in the event of flight disruptions. So flight disruptions such as delays, cancellations, lost luggage or baggage, and what have you. And this convention applies to international air travel. However, in Ghana, the Ghana Civil Aviation Act integrates and modifies this Montreal Convention and extends its application to domestic air travel. That is the general legal framework in Ghana. Also, under the same act, that's the Ghana Civil Aviation Act, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is given the power to issue directives to govern air travel or air operations in Ghana. Pursuant to that power, they issued the economic directives in 2019, particularly Part 2, which applies to consumer rights protection. So this is the basic, or these are the basic laws that govern air passenger rights in Ghana.
Okay, so from what you are saying, basically, that the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority Act actually has specific provisions providing for consumer protection of air passengers.
That is so.
Right. So from your experience in the aviation industry, what do you think are the major issues air passengers in Ghana face?
I believe there are three main issues. These are flight delays, denied boarding, then flight cancellation.
Okay.
These are the three main issues that affect the average passengers in Ghana.
All right. So you've mentioned flight delays and flight cancellations. Can you distinguish between these two situations?
So for the distinction, when it comes to flight cancellation, basically your flight has been cancelled, or yes, it's been cut off. So you are no longer embarking on the journey. But flight delays, eventually you embark on the journey, just that it will be late. So basically that's the difference between flight delays and flight cancellations.
So Nana, you've drawn the distinction between flight delays and flight cancellations. Now, with relation to flight delays, are my rights the same if my local flight, as in my flight from Accra to Kumasi was delayed, would I have the same rights if my flight from Accra to Kuala Lumpur was also delayed?
Well, some of the rights it cuts across, whether you're embarking on an international journey or domestic. So, under the Montreal Convention, which has been domesticated in the Ghana Civil Aviation Act, there is a maximum limit that one can claim for compensation when it comes to flight delays, but it depends on whether it's international or domestic. So, with respect to international, there is a cap measured in special drawing rights, and one special drawing right is about $1.3. You can always check that out on the IMF website. And with respect to domestic delay, so it depends if it's a passenger delay or we are talking about passenger delay,
Yes.
right? So in the case of passenger delay, there is a monetary cap rather. So instead of in special drawing rights, there's a monetary cap. And I believe for passenger delays is around $4,100 or so. If you look at the Ghana Civil Aviation Act, that's the maximum amount you can claim for delays, flight delays.
Internationally or domestic?
So the 4,100 is domestic.
Okay.
Beyond that, where there's a delay, so let's say a delay of 1 hour, ideally the airlines, they are supposed to provide you with assistance or care. This assistance or care, it doesn't matter if it is domestic or international. So the law says that if you are delayed for 1 hour, the airline should provide you with water. If you are delayed for 2 hours and beyond, they are supposed to provide you with refreshment. If it takes more than 2 hours, they are even supposed to provide. So if the circumstance necessitates that you have to sleep over, they also have to provide you with accommodation.
Oh, wow.
And even transportation to and from the airports.
For your accommodation?
Yes. Not your, hotel accommodation, because so assuming you are coming from Kumasi to Accra, you don't have accommodation in Accra, which means you have to book a hotel because of this delay. So they also have to cater for that. You understand? And even free phone calls, emails, you're entitled to all those things and assistance. So yes, these are the compensation that or entitlements that are afforded to various passengers.
Yeah, I need some clarity. You said if my flight is delayed for more than 2-3 hours, I'm entitled to refreshment. When they say refreshment, do they mean like snacks or like banquet and tilapia level of refreshment?
Tracy, that is not stated in the law, so that one is up to the airline.
All right.
Yeah.
So I have another issue. So personally, I've had an incident where my flight was delayed. I wasn't notified till it was due time to board, and then they were telling us, I think it was 10 or 15 minutes to the time for boarding, and then we were informed that I would have to be delayed. Ordinarily, aren't the airlines supposed to give us some form of notice in such a situation?
So, sometimes delay is not really planned. Sometimes not really planned. And the law is not specific as to whether they are supposed to provide you reasons why the flight is being delayed. It's different from cancellation. For cancellation, they are supposed to notify you timely, but it's different from delay. Yes.
So you've mentioned that with cancellation, the obligations and rights on both the airline and the passenger are slightly different. So in the context of a cancellation, what am I entitled to from an airline as an air passenger?
Okay, so for cancellation, basically the flight will not come off. You're entitled to refund of your tickets, basically. So it's either you choose that or the airline will offer you a reroute option or they will rebook another flight. So you have to choose between the two. However, when it comes to cancellation, timelines, That's as to the time that the airline is supposed to notify you. It's very important. That one would depend if you're entitled to compensation or not. So for the refund, if you don't want to continue with the journey, definitely you're entitled to your refund. You can claim that. But compensation depends on the timeline. Now, if you look at the directives, when it comes to international travel, the airline can cancel your flight at least 2 weeks before the scheduled time of departure. If they do so, they are not entitled to pay you any compensation because definitely the law deems that as sufficient time. However, if they cancel it between 2 weeks or 7 days to the scheduled time of departure, this is where it gets tricky. It's either they cancel but offer you a reroute option, which basically should be to the effect that you are supposed to leave. So let's say you are traveling between Ghana and America. So you are leaving Ghana to America. You are supposed to leave Ghana at most 2 hours before your scheduled time of departure. So if you are to leave Ghana, that's the original schedule is 8 o'clock. No, 8 a.m.
Right.
If you are supposed to leave Ghana at 8 a.m. The law says that they are supposed to give you a rebooking option, such that you can leave between the hours of 6 to 8. And if you are to get to America, let's say by 6 p.m., yes, the law allows for late arrival, but the late arrival shouldn't be 4 hours or beyond.
Okay.
So in other words, if you reach between 6 to, let's say, 9:59, for that one, you are not entitled to compensation.
But then when it hits 10,
yes, that's when that's when you can claim for your compensation. And sometimes they might even cancel it within 7 days to your schedule. That one, the timeline is different. So they are supposed to give you an option of early departure of at most 1 hour. It shouldn't go beyond the 1 hour before the scheduled time of departure. And also, the arrival shouldn't be later than 2 hours, 2 hours or later. So if you have to get to America by 6 p.m. and there's a late arrival of, let's say, 7:59, that one, you are not entitled to compensation. It's different from domestic. Domestic, if they cancel it 3 days before your scheduled time of departure, you are not entitled to compensation. However, if it is within the 3 days, so let's say a day before your scheduled time of flight and they cancel your flight, however, they offer you a reroute option where, let's say, between Kumasi and Accra, you're supposed to leave Kumasi around 8 a.m. and they offer you a reroute option where you're supposed to leave earlier than the 8 a.m. It should be between 6 and 8. However, you're supposed to get to your destination, that is Accra. Assuming it's a 1 hour flight, so let's say 8 to 9, you're supposed to get to Accra around 9 a.m. The offer should be such that there is a late arrival of at least 90 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry, at most 90 minutes. So which means that would be 10, is it 10:29, right? Yes, 10:29. That's late arrival because your original arrival, scheduled arrival was 9 a.m. So which means 10:29. That's almost 1 hour, 30 minutes.
Wow.
Beyond that, you're entitled to compensation.
It really is complicated.
Yes,
it really is complicated. Okay, so we've talked about passenger delays. Now let's look at baggage, because I think it's another issue that a lot of passengers face. So I heard someone complain recently about the fact that she traveled, she arrived, went to baggage claim, her suitcases weren't there, and she had an emergency event. So obviously her suitcases weren't there, so she didn't have clothes. So she had to purchase clothes while she waited for her luggage to eventually arrive. So in such a situation, we can say that the luggage was delayed and it wasn't necessarily lost.
Okay.
Do passengers also have rights when it comes to their baggage and what happens to it?
Okay. So before I address that question, when we're discussing the passenger delay and cancellation, I think I left one important thing out. So you're only entitled to compensation only if the delay was within the control of the airline, which means they could have avoided that delay. Circumstances beyond their control, if there's a flight delay or cancellation, you are not entitled to compensation.
So does this rule also apply to baggage?
Yes, it applies.
So if my airline is claiming that my lost baggage or the
But
delay,
it will be rare because you, the person,
you packed my
yes,
bag.
yes, you, the person, you've arrived at your destination,
Exactly.
but we can't. Your luggage is being delayed. It's rare that they will claim that it was beyond their control. Would have been different if the passenger himself or herself is being delayed, or they've cancelled your flight entirely. If they could have taken reasonable steps to avoid that, that one you can claim for compensation. But that is not up to you to prove that they could have, whether they could or they could not have avoided the situation. It's up to the airline to prove that. So it's the same for now. Your question is what lost.
Yes, my baggage is missing. Or is
no, I think you said delayed.
Yes.
If your baggage is delayed, so that one too, there is a cap under the Montreal Convention. I think for international flights, it's about 1,500 drawing rights. So you do the necessary calculation.
I'll go and check.
Doesn't mean you're entitled to that full amount.
Okay.
So it's the actual
value of the content
damage you've suffered, not just even the content. Sometimes because your luggage is delayed, sometimes you have to go and purchase certain essential items. You can claim for those items
so
because there are financial losses to it. So it's very important to keep those receipts. You understand? So beyond that cap, sometimes you can claim that's the general rule. You can claim up to that cap. If you want to claim beyond that cap, maybe at the time that you were checking in, sometimes these airlines, they have certain forms, a special declaration form where, let's say, you fill it and say that this luggage is quite valuable. So sometimes you put a value there, then you pay extra cost. So if your luggage is being delayed, okay, so that one is even for lost luggage, sorry. So I think it also applies to delayed luggage. Sometimes you can claim the declared amount. So the declared amount could be beyond the statutory limit.
But because the airline, yes, I made that statutory declaration.
Yes.
The airline
and you pay the necessary charges. The second exception is when you are able to prove that the damage was as a result of the intentional or reckless act of the airline or its employees, basically. So
with what you mentioned about me being able to get more if I fill the special declaratory form and then pay the required amount, is it possible for an airline to decide that even though this is the cap that has been provided, or there's like, can they decide that they will relatively pay less for what I'm demanding from them? So the cap is 1,000. I've come with my.
Are you talking about the statutory cap?
Yes.
So let's say the statutory cap is 1,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I've brought my receipts, but they're insisting that they won't pay more than $200 for lost items because that was what was in my terms and conditions when I was booking the flight. Is it possible for an airline to get away with that?
I'm trying to get your question right. So the statutory cap says you're entitled to a maximum of, let's say, $1,000. Oh, you are talking about drawing. Okay, yes. So international is.
Yes, I only fly international, baby. But
okay, I think.
But yeah, so it's an international.
Okay, so you, for the purpose of this example, let's stick to monetary terms.
Okay.
So assuming you are saying assuming the law provides for a maximum cap of $1,000, then your luggage is being delayed. Then the airline is choosing to pay you a low amount.
So I've come with my receipts and I say I had to buy a new shoe,
Okay.
clothes, an
Yeah.
entire outfit,
Yeah.
and it costs, let's say, 700 cedis. I present my receipts. Then the airline is now directing me to the terms and conditions when I was purchasing the tickets. And it says that in their terms and conditions, they have capped what a passenger can claim in the event of lost baggage at 500 cedis. But then the amount I'm claiming does not exceed the statutory cap.
Oh, okay.
Are they allowed to be able to make such a claim on the basis of the tickets and the terms and conditions from my booking of them?
No, they can't. They can't do that. They can't offer you terms and conditions that are lower than what the law provides you. They can, however, offer a better compensation than what the law is providing, but they can't go below that.
Okay.
It's unlawful.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
And when it comes to delays too, there are timelines for the passenger to report. So when there's delay, where there is a delay of, we are talking about baggage delay, right? So where there is a delay and you've not received your luggage for within 21 days, you can either report to in fact, you have to report
to the airline.
And it must be in writing. So it can be by email or letter. You are supposed to report to the airline that your luggage was delayed. So basically, when we are talking about delayed, it means you received the luggage. However, you didn't receive it
when I arrived.
Yes, when you arrived. So for the delay, you've actually received it. For the loss, you didn't receive your luggage. So there's a difference. So once you receive the luggage, or once it is placed at your disposal by the airline at a later date, you have 21 days from that time to file the complaint. If you fail to file the complaint within that 21 days, you are not entitled to claim compensation. With respect to lost luggage, the law implies that after, so that one applies to so what we are talking about so far is for international.
Yes.
Let's not forget. So when it comes to international flights, if your luggage is lost, or if you've not received your luggage after 21 days, the law implies that your luggage is lost. Or even before the 21 days elapses and the airline declares that your luggage is lost, the time begins from when they made that declaration that your luggage is lost.
So now, we have encountered situations where I booked my tickets, I get to the airport, and they tell us that I'm being denied, or I and a few other people are being denied boarding because the plane has been overbooked.
Okay.
Now, in such a situation, what is the procedure that the airline is supposed to carry out? And what are my rights in such a situation?
Okay, so in situations where the aircraft is overbooked, which means the passengers are more than the seats available. So yes, there are certain procedures that the airline must follow. Normally, these procedures, ideally, every airline is supposed to have, I think they call it boarding priority procedure, boarding priority procedures, where the airline will first request for volunteers to give up their tickets. So that one, the airline is not forcing you, or it's not taking away it's only requesting that you volunteer to give away your ticket.
From the generosity of my heart.
Yes, subject to compensation.
Okay.
You're entitled to compensation for giving up your tickets. However, after going through that, which is the involuntary, that's voluntary denied boarding. Now, if after that, there is still more passengers than seats available, then the next step is what we call the involuntary denied boarding, where the airline is supposed to deny people boarding.
So how does that work?
So that one, like I said, there should be a boarding priority procedure where certain people are given priority when it comes to deny boarding. So basically, I can think of the disabled, probably minors who are unattended by an adult. Then there are a
Elderly
number of them
people.
basically.
Elderly people,
Yes,
probably.
but these things, the airline is supposed to publish that, or passengers are supposed to be aware of these priority procedures before even booking the airline.
Okay. So in such a
Yes.
situation where I was part of the unfortunate few
Yeah.
who got involuntarily denied boarding,
Okay.
apart from the compensation the airline is providing, I'm not entitled to anything else.
Oh, yeah, you're entitled to some. So it depends if they also offered you rerouting options.
Okay.
So that's a different flight, basically. It depends. They can offer you that, or if they do not offer you that, you can also request for a refund.
Oh.
And during that time too, if you are being denied boarding, the airline is also supposed to give you some form of assistance. There are various assistance that I mentioned.
So the water,
Yes,
the drink,
even in extreme circumstances where you need to, stay overnight, you have to book a hotel for you and all that. So all those assistance are also available to someone who has been denied boarding involuntarily.
Okay. So I think within the last 18 months to 2 years, we've seen quite a bit in the news about planes crashing and unfortunately people dying and getting injured from their flights they were in. So let's start with injury. When a passenger is injured during the course of a flight, what rights does this passenger have against the airline?
Okay. Yes. So basically, you have right to compensation for the actual damage that you suffered. So when it comes to the aviation industry, it works different. It works different in the sense that under the Montreal Convention, it creates a two-tier liability system. I'll be explaining that. So the first tier, once you suffer an injury as a result of aircraft accidents, automatically, the airline is liable to pay you compensation up to the cap provided by the Montreal Convention. I believe it's about 150 something thousand special drawing rights. That is the maximum cap. The only thing you must do is to prove the extent of your damages. You don't have to prove that the airline was negligent or not. That is not your duty. So that is the first tier. Once the accident occurs, once you suffer an injury, you're entitled to compensation. It doesn't matter if it was caused by the aircraft or the airline or not.
So just to clarify, I'm entitled to up to that cap of 150,000 drawing units.
Yes.
But to be able to maybe hit that maximum,
Yes.
I have to prove that the damage I suffered.
You mean maximum of the limit?
Yes.
Or beyond? You are talking about
So
beyond that limit.
Let's look at the maximum. We are in tier 1.
Which is about around 155.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not just because I was injured that I'll go and say, please, I was injured. This is my injury. Give me 150,000 special drawing rights because.
Okay.
But then I have to maybe bring receipts about maybe this is how much I spent on treatment.
Yes.
Because of this, I couldn't work for X number of days, so I couldn't get paid. And then based on the sum I'm claiming as compensation, if it doesn't exceed that 150,000 drawing units, then I don't need it doesn't have to be established whether or not the airline is at fault.
Yes.
It just has to be established that indeed this is what I lost as a result of the injury suffered.
Exactly.
So that's tier 1.
That's tier 1.
Okay, so let's go to tier 2.
Let's not forget, it's not just injury. This also applies to death.
Oh,
the event of
okay.
death, where let's say your personal representatives or your family intends to claim compensation. Now that you the passenger, you are no longer.
Fortunately, RIP.
So yes, your family has to claim that compensation. So beyond the statutory limit provided by the convention, you can claim beyond that. In other words, if you believe you suffered more than what has been provided under the laws, there's the need to establish that the airline was negligent. under normal circumstances, so usually when it comes to a normal motor accident, like car accident or um, instances where you are suing somebody for negligence, ideally, you that you are suing, so if I'm suing you for
Yes,
negligence,
civil action.
yes, I have to prove that you were negligent.
Yes, he who alleges must prove.
Yes, he who alleges must prove. I must prove that you were negligent, and because of that, I'm
I was
entitled to this amount.
injured.
It's different when it comes to air passenger rights in the event of aircraft accidents. It's different. This time, the burden is on the airline to prove that it was not negligent or the accident was as a result of the actions or omissions of a third party.
Okay. Who is not related to the airline.
Yes.
Okay.
So they must prove that they were not negligent. The accident was not caused by their own negligence. If they are able to prove that, then you are limited to the statutory limits.
I have to go
You
back.
can't claim beyond that limit.
Okay.
So, however, if they are unable to, then you can actually claim for the damages that you actually suffered. So, the law gives further protection to passengers in the event of aircraft accidents. So, under our Civil Aviation Act, it provides that where there's an accident, the airline is supposed to provide certain immediate assistance. They termed as advance payment within 30 days. And this advance payment is around $30,000, whether domestic or international. So the airline is supposed to, once there is an accident, then you suffer some form of damages or injury. The airline is supposed to give you that amount within 30 days. And this is to cater for your immediate financial, losses. So like there's a need for you to go to hospital and all that, just to cater for those costs. However, that doesn't mean that once you accept that advance, it doesn't mean that you've waived your right to claim further compensation. Because maybe at the end of the day, actually you suffered more than the $30,000. You are entitled to claim what you actually suffered. Yes. But the amount that you claim, they will use to offset.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so
you understand?
If I bring my receipts and let's say everything costs, what I spent as a result of the injury cost, let's say $70,000.
Yes.
But they gave me 30,000 in advance, and I'm able to prove it. They will say, okay, because we gave you 30,000, we will only give you about 40,000 or the equivalent special drawing rights I'm entitled to, yes. And then we ended it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't also mean that the airline is accepting liability that they were negligent.
Okay. It's because it's not exceeding the cap at that point. Because tier one, whether or not you're negligent, if it happened in the course of the flight, then I'm entitled to compensation from you. Okay, that's clear. So you've mentioned the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority as the act that domesticates the Montreal Convention and gives other protections to domestic air passengers is the act that governs the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. But what is its role when it comes to the protection of air passenger rights in Ghana?
Yes, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority has a major role when it comes to protection of air passenger rights as the regulator of the aviation industry. So, as we earlier stated, or as I earlier stated, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority has power to issue directives to govern the affairs of the various air service providers in the aviation industry, including these airlines. So one power that they have is to issue directives, which is the consumer protection, the economic directives on consumer protection, and also to enforce the provisions of those directives. They also have the power to investigate complaints filed by passengers. So ideally, where there's an issue and you want to seek compensation, the first person you usually report to is the airline. Where they are failing to resolve your matter, you can escalate it to the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority for them to investigate the action. And they have the power to request for certain information from the airlines, which they are obliged to do so, to assist in these investigations. So that one today play a major role in that. and even to the extent of imposing civil penalties
on the airline.
for breaching their directives. So if you look at the economic directives and the consumer protection, there are various degrees of civil penalties that the airline is liable if they fail to adhere to the provisions of the directives.
Okay.
From minimum to maximum civil penalties. So beyond that sanctions, they can sanction the airline if they fail to pay you compensation and further
make them pay
compel
me.
you to pay your compensation.
That's good.
Yes.
I think generally a lot of our laws don't sufficiently make provisions for people with disabilities. Are there specific provisions looking at how air travel is to sort of provide rights to people with disabilities who use that mode of transport?
Yes. There are special laws governing persons with disabilities. So far, what we've discussed so far, it applies to all persons, including the disabled. However, there are special laws. So in Ghana, the Ghana Civil Aviation Act issued the technical directives on handling persons with disability in 2015. Actually, that directive applies not only to airlines, it applies to various air service providers in the aviation industry. So not just the airlines, it even applies to the Ghana Airport Company. In other words, aerodrome or airport operators. And the disabled are adequately protected. Under that directives, discrimination is a fundamental, right to discrimination is a fundamental human
right, not to be discriminated.
Right, yes, sorry. It's a fundamental human right.
Yes.
You understand? And you cannot deny someone boarding on the basis of his disability. You can't do that. And it's only limited to certain circumstances. So issue of, let's say, safety, where there's an issue of safety.
That is the only basis.
That's the only
one of the bases.
Yes,
the
or
exception.
the main basis for denying someone. But you have to give reasons why you are denying boarding.
Okay.
And you are supposed to give that reason within 10 working days. Okay. If you are denying someone, a disabled person, from boarding the aircraft. Okay. Beyond, there are several protections under the law. It also requires that the airlines or the personnel of the airlines maintains constant contact with disabled person, attending to them, let's say every 30 minutes, just to update them about their flight and all that. When you go to airport, there are several wheelchairs at the ticketing area, at the boarding gates, and even in the aircraft, even in the washroom of the aircraft, they are supposed to be these wheelchairs.
Friendly.
Yes, various aids to assist them, devices to assist them. So it's a whole lot. It's quite broad. I don't think we have enough time to discuss that.
Well, it is good to know that the aviation industry does have this protection for people with disabilities. So to wrap up, I'm sure we've learned a lot about the rights that exist for passengers who decide to travel via airlines. But what would you say that passengers should keep in mind whenever they take a flight in Ghana?
Well, first of all, they are supposed to know their rights so that in the event of any flight disruptions, they are not confused as to what to do. So knowledge of your rights is very important. It's always important to also arrive in time to avoid any last minute issues. Always remember to keep records. Documents is very, very important because you don't know where your issue will escalate to. Evidence. You are claiming you're entitled to this. What shows that you're entitled to that? So always keep records. Your tickets, your boarding pass, you're supposed to keep records of everything. So basically, these are the things that passengers must always have in mind before they embark on the journey.
I think my major lesson I have learned is timing is very important. Because I've
Yes.
realized a lot of these complaints and your ability to claim compensation, there's a timeline on it. And if you fail to act quickly, then obviously you won't
And
get it.
yes, there's a limitation. So ideally, if you want to claim compensation under the act, you have 2 years to do so.
Oh, okay.
Beyond that 2 years, if you take it to court, they will dismiss the action.
As statute
That
bad.
as statute bad.
Okay.
So within 2 years.
Okay. So this is my final question. And this is a personal question. So a friend booked a flight, but unfortunately the date she scheduled, she wanted to travel on the 15th, but accidentally chose the 14th.
Okay.
And when she realized her mistake, she realized it like the next day, but she was supposed to travel, let's say, 3 weeks after. When she realized it, she called the airline and explained the situation. I was hoping to see if she could get a refund or like a reroute or something like that. But the airline told her that there was nothing they could do for her based on the terms, the
Okay.
airline's terms and conditions. And now, this is me asking that, is there something in the law which provides for such a situation? Because we would admit that this situation is the passenger's fault
Yeah.
and not the airline's fault. So does the law provide some sort of provision for such a situation? Or
Unfortunately, it doesn't. So in these circumstances, the contract of carriage, that's the airline's policies, terms and conditions, that applies in this situation. You know, sometimes we have different kinds of tickets. We even have refundable tickets. So it depends on the type of ticket you purchase. If you didn't purchase, you purchase an ordinary ticket, you didn't purchase a refundable or a ticket that you can,
swap
change your flight
your route.
and all that. That one, I'm sorry, the law can't help you with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nana. I think this has been an extremely informative episode. I have personally learned a lot, and now I will be insisting on my rights whenever I have to travel and I experience any of the issues. And now, Nana Ahin and my colleague Ajwa Wusu Minta have published an insightful article on the aviation industry, which you will find on our website. And the links to this article will be tagged on the various social media platforms where this video will be posted. Thank you so much for joining us. And this has been another exciting episode of the Community First podcast. See you soon.